Ray Johnson Williams told the story of this man whom he called Liszt. Liszt is a great guy who has everything going for him. He has his wife and 3 kids. They stay together with their mother in this great mansion. And he is very religious. They go to church regularly for services. And he is a banker. He works in a bank. One day, Liszt was laid off from his bank job, and he didn't know how he was going to inform his family about it. So he didn't tell them about the loss of job. And every day in the morning, the usual time he goes to work, he dresses up and say goodbye to his family and drive to a train station, stays there for a while and read newspaper, after which he returns back home when it is time to close. This went on for a long time until one day he became worried that his family would continue to deteriorate into poverty more and more, and eventually they would abandon Christianity and go to hell. He doesn't want his family to go to hell. So he thought about a plan, and one day he just told them a surprise announcement that they are going for a vacation. Now, while everybody has been informed that they are going for a vacation, then Mr. Liszt went and looked for a pew, and then he came home with it one day. And while the children were away from home, he went to his wife, and then he pointed the pew at her and unalives her. And then he moves to his mom's room and pointed the pew at her and unalives her. And then he waited for his children to come back. When they returned back from school, he pointed the pew at his 3 children and unalives them all. And he sat down and wrote a detailed letter to his church, his pastor to be specific, detailing why he had to do what he did out of fear of his family members ending in hell because of the deteriorating of his family into poverty, and they are possibly abandoning the Christian faith. And then he dropped the letter at home and then took all the family photos, removed all the photos with his pictures on them, and after which he left town. Everybody thought they went for a vacation, so nobody really bothered to check. And months went on. He left all the lights on, and as time went on, the neighbors noticed the lights going off, and they realized it's like nobody is staying in that house. And they called the police, and when the police came, they eventually opened the door and discover the thing that he has left behind. Now, because he removed all his pictures from the family photos, nobody was able to trace him. And he relocated to another town, changed his name, and started living a normal life. And he continued like that. Eventually, he got a church and he started attending. And then with time, he came across another woman whom he fell in love with her, and they eventually got married in the church where he has been attending. Now, time passed, and until after 20 years, when the story about what was done by him was broadcasted on the television, and the woman who used to be his neighbor recognized the face of the man whose story is being shown on the television, and she called the police and said she knows this person, and she gave the details to the police, and then the police came and eventually arrested this same man who has changed his name to another person and changed his identity, got married, and he was convicted. Initially he denied it, but finally he admitted what he did, and then he was sentenced to life imprisonment. And then in the prison, after many years, at the age of 80 something, he came down with pneumonia, and he finally passed away. Before he passed away though, he said he still hopes to reunite with his family in heaven. Now, this is a very strong and serious story. Now, but the big question is the moral uprightness of what he did. Now, we could see this thing from different scenarios. On the general moral principle of the world, What he did was awful, was terrible. He just cut short the lives. He just cut short the lives of people, and stopped them from enjoying their life to the fullest and living their lives to the fullest. But there is another angle from which we can look at this and say maybe, well, it could actually be for good for the family. For example, if the family eventually came to realize that this is what happened to him, of course, two things are involved here. They would either decide to stay with him and still hold on to the faith, or they might abandon the faith. There are two considerations that others may have. Some will say if they eventually discovered the poverty and abandoned the faith, they were never really true Christians from the beginning, because a true Christian will stand with Christ in thick and in thin, and all of that. And that is a whole doctrinal debate that I don't want to go into. But there is a good chance that what he did might have actually saved his family from going to hell, especially if there is a chance that they would eventually grow and become unbelievers and abandon Christ, and out of like the fear he had, eventually go to hell. But this issue, because of doctrinal complexities and complication, is more serious than you would even imagine, or than you would even think it is. For example, you look at the babies that were taken away from while they are still in their mother's womb, and then you want to ask yourself this question: are they being done or helped? Is it good that is being done to them or not? For example, if some of those babies were possibly allowed to be born, they're going to live a wayward and a sinful life, and from that they would eventually come and go off. When their time is done on earth, they would end up in hell. But now that they have been taken away from the innocency of the womb, they have a very good chance of going to heaven instead of spending an eternity in hell. If you look at it in another way, you would say, well, whoever that did that, if especially there is a possibility that they will not follow the path of righteousness and go to hell, you would say this person have probably really helped them and saved them from hell. Unless, of course, if you look at this subject of hell from another perspective, there is this scripture that seems to suggest that even babies that are born from unbelieving parents are unclean. And that we can infer, not conclusively because it is a long theological debate, but we can infer that there is a possibility that even babies that are born would go to hell if they are born by unbelieving parents. That is another debate that I don't want to go into. But if that school of thought is accepted to be so, then there is a very good chance that, well, those people that took out the lives of those children earlier didn't really help them in any way. There is another angle you could look at it from. If we would agree that the family were never saved, if they would eventually have to abandon the faith because of poverty, then even with what he did, we will say they will still go to hell because they were not really genuine believers or true converts. But of course, like I said, theological debates vary greatly upon this line of thought. But I want to know what you think about this story. So drop your thoughts in the comment box. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and subscribe to my channel for more thought-provoking, faith-enriching content. See you in the next video, and shalom.